Every woman has a language she never speaks out loud. It lives in the way she moves, the parts of herself she reveals, and the moments she lets her guard fall, but only around you. And if a woman shows you a specific part of her body, one she protects from everyone else, she wants you inside her deepest walls, inside her trust, inside the version of herself she doesn't show the world. That's not a guess. That's biology. That's millions of years of instinct saying one thing: you. Today, I'm revealing 9 signals most men will never recognize. You're not most men. Think about the last time you were near a woman and something shifted. You couldn't quite explain it. The conversation felt different. She seemed more relaxed. She moved a little closer. Her eyes lingered for an extra second, or suddenly she became more expressive and open. Maybe you walked away wondering, was she interested in me, or was I imagining the whole thing? That uncertainty can stay with you for years. And if you've ever replayed a conversation afterward, wondering whether a woman's behavior meant attraction, comfort, nervousness, or simply friendliness, you're not alone. Most people struggle to interpret these subtle moments because human body language isn't a dictionary with one fixed meaning for every gesture. So tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed a woman behaving differently around you, but couldn't figure out why? Describe the moment without revealing anyone's private information. Your experience might help someone else recognize something they once misunderstood. Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. Today, we're going to look at 9 subtle behaviors that can sometimes reveal comfort, openness, interest, or emotional connection. But there's an important distinction I want you to remember from the beginning. No single gesture proves attraction. A woman touching her hair doesn't automatically mean she wants you. Turning her knees toward you doesn't automatically mean she's interested. And standing close doesn't automatically mean romantic attraction. Context matters, personality matters, culture matters. And most importantly, her words and boundaries matter. The real skill isn't learning how to decode women as though they were puzzles. It's learning how to notice patterns without jumping to conclusions. Because genuine attraction usually isn't one dramatic signal. It's a cluster of behaviors that become more consistent as 2 people become more comfortable with each other. Let's start with something subtle. She moves her hair away from her neck. You've probably seen this hundreds of times. You're talking, and she reaches up and moves her hair to one side. Suddenly, her face is more visible. Her posture opens. She may continue looking at you while she does it. The internet often describes the exposed neck as a guaranteed sign of attraction. That's too simplistic. People move their hair because they're warm, because it's uncomfortable, because they're thinking, or simply because it's a habit. But here's what can make the behavior meaningful. Context. If she repeatedly becomes more open physically when you're talking, maintains comfortable eye contact, smiles naturally, asks personal questions, and seems noticeably more relaxed around you, the hair movement becomes one small piece of a larger pattern. The psychological principle underneath this is called behavioral synchrony and nonverbal openness. When people feel comfortable with one another, their bodies often become less defensive. Their posture can become more relaxed, their gestures more expressive, and their movements more naturally coordinated. So don't stare at her neck and think you've discovered a secret code. Watch the whole person. That's where the real information is. The second signal is the way she uses her hands. Imagine you're sitting across from a woman at a cafe. She's telling you a story. Her hands are moving as she talks. Her palms are visible. Her gestures are relaxed. She's leaning naturally into the conversation, instead of keeping her arms tightly crossed. Compare that with someone whose arms remain tightly folded, whose body repeatedly turns away, and whose gestures become smaller and more guarded. The difference isn't necessarily attraction, it's openness. Open gestures can communicate psychological comfort, especially when they appear alongside relaxed facial expressions, sustained conversation, and a willingness to share personal thoughts. And this gives you a practical exercise. The next time you're talking with someone you like, stop focusing entirely on what her hands are doing. Instead, notice your own body. Are you leaning forward? Are your shoulders relaxed? Are your arms open? Are you giving her enough space? Because attraction isn't created by analyzing someone harder. It's often strengthened by making the interaction feel safe enough for both people to relax. The third signal is subtle self-adjustment. Maybe she touches her necklace. Maybe she adjusts her collar. Maybe she smooths her hair or briefly touches her face while talking to you. This is one of the most misunderstood areas of body language. Self-touch can happen because of attraction, but it can also happen because of nervousness, self-awareness, habit, stress, or simple grooming. What matters is when it happens. Imagine you're in a group conversation. She's relaxed with everyone. Then you begin speaking directly to her, and suddenly she becomes slightly more self-conscious. She adjusts her hair, straightens her clothing, checks her appearance, and then looks back at you. That may indicate heightened self-awareness. And heightened self-awareness can happen when someone cares about how they are being perceived. But again, don't turn one gesture into a verdict. Instead, ask yourself, does her entire behavior become more engaged when we're interacting? That's a much better question. The fourth signal is the shoulder drop. You've probably experienced this yourself. You meet someone you're nervous around, and your shoulders are slightly tense. Then, after 20 minutes of conversation, you suddenly realize you're sitting differently. Your breathing is slower, your shoulders have dropped, you're no longer thinking about what to say next. That's what psychological safety can look like in the body. When a woman becomes progressively more relaxed around you, her shoulders may lower, her movements may become slower, and her posture may become more natural. That's not necessarily sexual or romantic, but it can be meaningful, because attraction without emotional safety can be fragile. A person may find someone physically attractive while still feeling uncomfortable around them. Genuine connection often requires something deeper, the nervous system beginning to believe, I don't have to protect myself every second here. Here's an important practical lesson. If you want someone to feel more comfortable around you, don't try to force intimacy. Slow down. Listen. Don't interrupt every pause. Don't turn every vulnerable statement into a joke. And don't use someone's openness as an opportunity to push for more. Sometimes the most attractive thing you can communicate is simply, you don't have to perform around me. Now let's talk about body orientation. You're sitting with several people. Everyone is laughing and talking. But one woman gradually turns her body toward you. Her feet may point in your direction. Her shoulders may face you. When you speak, she turns toward you rather than remaining oriented towards someone else. Does that prove attraction? No. But orientation can tell you where someone's attention is naturally being directed. Humans tend to orient their bodies toward things they are attending to. That's why this becomes more interesting when it happens repeatedly. Suppose she's in a group and consistently turns toward you when you speak. She remembers details from previous conversations. She finds reasons to continue talking with you. She asks follow-up questions. She looks for your reaction when something funny happens. Now you're no longer looking at one isolated gesture. You're observing a behavioral pattern. And patterns are far more informative than isolated signals. The sixth signal is a change in physical distance. This is one of the clearest things to notice, but also one of the easiest to misread. Imagine you're standing with a woman in a crowded room. There are several places she could stand. She chooses a comfortable distance near you. Later, the room becomes quieter. She remains nearby. You move slightly, and she naturally maintains the same comfortable distance. That may indicate familiarity or comfort, but there's an important rule here. Proximity is only meaningful when it's voluntary and consistent. If she steps backward, don't interpret that as a challenge. If she creates more distance, respect it. If she repeatedly chooses closeness, that's information too, but it still isn't permission to assume what she wants. This is where emotional intelligence separates confidence from entitlement. Confidence says, I notice that she seems comfortable around me. Entitlement says, I know exactly what she wants. Those are completely different mindsets. The seventh signal is one that gets exaggerated online. The hip shift or change in posture. You may notice a woman shifting her weight onto one leg while standing. Perhaps she places one hand on her hip. Maybe her posture becomes more expressive while she's talking to you. Some body language content claims that this is an ancient biological signal that automatically means sexual attraction. Real psychology is much more complicated. People shift their weight because standing still is tiring. They do it because it's comfortable. They do it because of clothing, balance, posture, or habit. So why include it? Because posture can still tell you something when combined with everything else. If someone becomes more expressive, more animated, more relaxed, and more engaged specifically during interactions with you, that change in physical presentation may reflect increased emotional involvement. The important word is may. Psychological awareness isn't about certainty, it's about probability. And that's a much healthier way to understand attraction. The eighth signal is what happens around the mouth and eyes. You might be talking and for a moment, her gaze moves from your eyes toward your mouth before returning to your eyes. People often interpret this as a guaranteed sign that someone wants physical intimacy. Again, not necessarily. She could simply be processing what you're saying. She could be distracted. She could naturally scan faces while listening. But imagine something more specific. You're having an emotionally charged conversation. She maintains eye contact. Her expression softens. Her attention remains focused entirely on you. There's a brief pause, and she looks toward your mouth before looking back into your eyes. Combined with other signs of reciprocal interest, that moment can suggest heightened awareness of the interpersonal connection. And here's something you can practice. Don't immediately act on the signal. Let the moment breathe. Continue the conversation. See whether she continues choosing engagement. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make in dating is responding to a moment before they understand the pattern. The ninth signal is consistent voluntary proximity. This is perhaps the most important one, not because it's the most dramatic, but because it involves choice. Imagine a woman who repeatedly chooses to spend time with you when she doesn't have to. She initiates conversations. She remembers small details. She follows up later. She makes space for you. She seems comfortable sitting near you. She looks for opportunities to continue an interaction rather than constantly trying to end it. Now, we're talking about something much more meaningful than a fleeting gesture. We're talking about investment. Psychology tells us that people tend to allocate time, attention, and emotional energy toward relationships that matter to them. And that's why one of the best questions you can ask isn't, "What does this gesture mean?" It's, "Does she consistently choose connection with me?" That question changes everything. Because attraction isn't simply about body language. It's about behavior over time. It's about reciprocity. It's about whether two people are moving toward one another willingly. And here's the part I really want you to remember. None of these 9 signals should be treated as proof. A woman touching her hair doesn't mean she wants you. A woman exposing her wrists doesn't mean she trusts you completely. A woman turning toward you doesn't mean she's romantically interested. A woman sitting close doesn't automatically mean she wants physical contact. And a woman smiling at you doesn't mean you've been given permission to cross a boundary. Instead, look for clusters. Look for consistency. Look for reciprocity. Look for whether her behavior matches her words. And most importantly, when the situation becomes genuinely romantic, communicate. You don't have to become awkward or robotic. You can simply say, "I really enjoy being around you. I'm wondering if you feel the same." That may feel less mysterious than trying to decode every movement, but it's infinitely more respectful. And strangely enough, that kind of honesty can create deeper attraction because it demonstrates emotional courage. Think about someone named Daniel. Daniel spent months trying to figure out whether a woman at his workplace liked him. She laughed at his jokes. She sometimes stood close to him. She played with her hair. She often looked at him during meetings. Daniel convinced himself these were definite signs. Eventually, he asked her out. She politely declined. And Daniel felt embarrassed, not because he had asked, but because he had built an entire story around a handful of ambiguous behaviors. Now imagine a different approach. Instead of collecting signals, Daniel notices that she frequently initiates conversations, remembers personal details, and chooses to spend time with him outside of work. He eventually asks her directly. That's a healthier form of confidence. He isn't pretending to know her feelings. He's giving her the freedom to tell him. That's the real lesson behind female psychology and attraction. The goal isn't to become an expert at manipulating body language. The goal is to become an expert at noticing without assuming. Because when a woman feels genuinely seen, she doesn't need to perform. She doesn't need to send increasingly dramatic signals. She can simply be herself. And the same applies to you. You don't have to become someone else to create attraction. You don't need perfect lines. You don't need to memorize 9 gestures. You don't need to stare at someone's body looking for clues. Instead, become attentive. Listen carefully. Notice patterns. Respect boundaries. Create emotional safety. And allow attraction to develop naturally. Because the strongest connections aren't built when one person successfully decodes the other. They're built when 2 people gradually become comfortable enough to stop hiding. So if you've ever remembered a moment with a woman and thought, "I wonder what that really meant," go back to that memory with a different perspective. Don't ask, "Which signal did I miss?" Ask, "Was there mutual interest? Was there consistency? Did she choose to stay connected? Did I make her feel safe enough to be herself? And perhaps most importantly, did I give her enough freedom to tell me what she actually wanted?" That's where emotional intelligence begins. Attraction isn't a secret code hidden in someone's neck wrists, hips, lips, or posture. Those things can provide clues about comfort, attention, and emotional state. But the deepest signal is much simpler. She chooses connection, again and again, and you choose it too. If something in this video reminded you of a moment you never understood, tell me in the comments which signal stood out to you most. And if you know someone who constantly overthinks whether a woman is interested, share this video with him. If you enjoyed this deeper look at female psychology, relationship behavior, and emotional connection, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Senior Mindful Living, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes the most important thing a person communicates isn't hidden in a mysterious gesture. It's revealed through consistency, respect, attention, and the quiet decision to keep coming closer.